going to see, you know, the eyeball itself here, with starting at the cornea and the sclera, but then you're going to see all these other things attached to it and around it. So these are the eyelids, and actually, if you flip your eyelid up like this and you look at that pink part of your eyelid, so we all kind of know where that is, that's actually a mucous membrane. But then we give it a special name. It's called the conjunctiva. Conjunctiva is the mucous membrane of the eye. It's got a bunch of glands that make mucus.
So when you get conjunctivitis, that's what gets inflamed.
So pink eye is an inflammation of that mucous membrane. And then you get excess mucus production, which causes that filmy stuff to go down your eye. If anybody's had pink eye recently, but you'll notice, and you probably remember, your vision kind of went blurry for a second because you had all this mucus, extra mucus, just washing down the surface of your eye. It's kind of like, I mean, I had it in college, I remember, and it was just like, what is this? Oh crap, I have pink eye. It was a bad moment.
And if you're sleeping and it collects, it pretty much mats your eye closed.
Yes, that's why when you get up morning, you can't open your eye because it's crusted over.
Yeah, my daughter just had it.
Yeah, not fun. Okay, so that's conjunctivitis, and that involves the eyelid. Of course, when the eyelids are open, light is allowed to pass straight through that space into the cornea. Cornea is the first structure that light passes through here. Before we talk about the pathway of light through the eye, I want to mention a couple things here. The levator palpebrae muscle, you're going to notice, is sitting right on top of superior rectus. So don't get it confused with superior rectus. In the models in lab, this muscle has been removed. Keep in mind, there is a muscle above superior rectus, which you see in the models lab. It's not there. That's the levator palpebrae, innervated by the sympathetic nervous system. So that's what keeps your eyes open during lecture, is the sympathetic nervous system, which is why every once in a while you gotta get up and move around, or take some deep breaths in and then breathe out. So inhale, exhale, large breaths, and that will keep you awake in class because it will stimulate your sympathetic nervous system, which autonomically elevates this muscle, pulls on this muscle, or causes the muscle to pull on the eyelid. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, can you spell the name of that muscle that's next to the superior rectus, or excuse me, above the superior rectus?
Yeah, it's right here. Levator palpebrae. Do you have the PowerPoint printed out? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's levator, like elevator without the E. Because it elevates the palpebrae. So P-A-L-P-E-B-R-A-E. You're welcome. Now we have some other stuff. So the lacrimal gland is not an external structure. Okay, it's sitting underneath your skin and has a bunch of these little tubes. Grace, this goes back to your question the other day.
About crying.
About while you're studying. Oh, when you're young. You're studying for that. So as the tear ducts produce tears, and they're physically stimulated by a yawn, but normally they're electrically stimulated by a nerve called the lacrimal nerve. Every couple seconds to produce tears, which then wash over the surface of the eye from superolateral to inferomedial. These ducts that collect that tear, those excess tears, are called the canaliculi. You'll recognize that term from the skeletal system. And drain those tears into the lacrimal sac, which goes through this tube into the nasal cavity, called the nasolacrimal duct. So that's the pathway of tears, from the gland, across the eye, to the canaliculi. Can I lick your eye? I'm sorry. Lacrimal sac down the nasolacrimal duct into your nasal cavity.
You wouldn't want to lick someone's eye if they had conjunctivitis.
No, you wouldn't. That's disgusting. Your dog might lick your eye if you had conjunctivitis. Wouldn't put it past my pug to lick my eye if I was sick. It would probably like that because dogs like gross stuff like that. Rolling.
So is that why you like your nose runs super bad when you're crying? Because it's just screaming out of your eyes?
Yeah, so you can put two and two together there when you're crying, while studying through anatomy. You know that you're kind of like, you're stuffed up immediately because you've got a bunch of liquid going into your nose. That's exactly it. So knowing the anatomy and the relationship with these different systems kind of helps you understand that. And also keep in mind there's antibacterial and tears called lysozyme, kind of like lysosome. Yeah.
Curious. When you eat something spicy, it can cause your sinuses to act, but it doesn't necessarily make you cry.
Oh, it makes me cry. Oh yeah. Like I'm sweating and crying.
Nose is running all at the same time.
It's just gonna happen.
Maybe you're just really good with spicy food.
I was just curious, I was like, well, if you're crying,
I guess it's not so much.
why is it eating spicy? But I guess it's an individual.
Must be, because yeah, when if I'm eating spicy food, I get, stimulates everything, that capsaicin molecule, I get mucus production, tear production, sweat, everywhere.
Yeah, it's not like spicy food's supposed to like clear everything out.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because if it's stimulating mucus production, that mucus will wash everything out of your sinuses, so it's good to eat spicy food when you have a cold. Yeah, good.
My father-in-law has something that, like, his eyes just start watering. Is that because it can't drain, or that's because his lacrimal gland is, like, producing too much?
Depends on what's
So
going
it's just
on.
random,
with his
like, he'll just start
anatomy.
wiping his eyes, and, like,
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Does it happen every day, all the time?
Not all the time, but usually, like, throughout the day. And he had a name for it, I couldn't remember what it was called, but I just didn't know if it just couldn't.
Hyperlectremia. I don't know how to make that up. Yeah, it's one of two things. It's either too much tear production or proper tear drainage. You nailed it. So without really knowing exactly what's affected, it would be one of those two things.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah, good. So yeah, I've never heard of that before. I mean, your body can produce too much sweat. Hyperhidrosis. So I'm sure that there are similar conditions with the lacrimal gland. It's just controlled by a nerve. It might be stimulated too much. Some people have anhidrosis, where they don't sweat enough. So there's always a gland. There's some sort of disease or disorder associated with every gland. So yeah, there's no reason why that wouldn't be a possibility.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. So eye muscles. Look at all these eye muscles. They're all controlled by different nerves. Well, the eye muscles as a group are controlled by 3 separate cranial nerves. All right, so you know where they are based on their name, okay? Superior rectus above. Inferior rectus. Rectus is straight muscle. These are straight muscles. Above, below is inferior. Sides, lateral, medial. And then you have these muscles attaching at an angle to the eye. What are those muscles called?
The obliques.
The oblique muscles. You see one here. The one above is superior rectus. I'm sorry. The one above is superior oblique. The one below is inferior oblique. Those are going to rotate your eyes. How do you remember? Because you need to know what cranial nerves innervate what muscles. How do you remember that? What's your memory trick? What's that memory trick you talked about? It sounds like a chemical equation.
Just see him breathing.
Yeah, so that's the last part of the memory trick. Everything else 3. What's the first part?
Something 6.
LR6.
LR6.
And then what's sulfuric acid? SO4.
SO4.
And then everything else 3. It's on the slideshow. Tricked ya. Okay, LR6, SO4, everything else 3. That's your cranial nerve innervation to the muscles, which are abbreviated. You guys following that in terms of what abbreviations mean what? The lateral,
Rectus.
LR stands for lateral rectus.
6.
Okay.
SO stands for superior oblique.
Superior oblique. 4. Everything else is 3.
And everything else, all the other muscles are innervated by cranial nerve 3. So
Okay.
cranial nerve 6 innervates the lateral rectus, cranial nerve 4 innervates superior oblique, and everything else is 3.
And
that
3 makes sense because it's ocular motor.
Yeah, like generally the name of the cranial nerve tells you that it's gonna go to the eyes, but it's not gonna tell you what muscle it's gonna go to.
Right.
Unless you can remember abducens abducts your eyeball.
Right.
And the muscle that would abduct your eyeball would be the one on the lateral side. If you can remember that, then you can kind of piece together that one. But this is the easiest way, especially when you're in nursing school and you're doing neuro evaluations. You have to know this information. It's a must. So this is how you'll probably remember it. It's that chemical equation. Okay. And the eye muscles just move the eye in the direction they're pulling. So if you look at the eyeball and you visualize, let's go back to this one. You visualize this muscle contracting and tugging on the top of the eye. What direction your eye is going to move? Up. Right? So it's, my hand is the eyeball, and I pull my hand up like this. It's going to move my pupil, or my iris, upwards. The inferior rectus, when it pulls, it's going to move the eye down. Medial rectus, when it pulls, it's going to move the eye inwards. So you just kind of, that's one way to do it. It's just like hold your hand out, kind of pull in the direction that that eye's in. And what it's saying is I'm sorry, what the terminology is it's in reference to the direction the pupil is moving. Okay, so if the pupil is going up, that's elevation. Pupil is going down, that's depression. Okay, not really gonna go much over the anatomy because we've kind of been doing that already, but remember that you've got the 3 tunics, the fibrous, the vascular, and the nervous. We're going to spend most of our time in the nervous tunic because that's what has to do with the cranial nerve. So here's our optic nerve, and you're going to notice it's attached to that yellow layer. It's continuous with that yellow layer, which is the retina. The cornea and the sclera make up the fibrous tunic. So that fibrous tunic really is just there for structure. And you can think of the sclera as sort of the strong part of the eye there to hold the structural spherical shape. And then the cornea is transparent. It's completely opposite of the sclera. It's transparent, at least it should be, and it helps transmit. And it actually bends light because it is a convex surface. So something hitting a convex surface, if you think about a prism, when light hits a prism, it gets bent in different directions, which is why you see that spectrum of blue, yellow, because it's bending the light. The cornea does the same thing, so it's actually the first structure that bends light. But you might want to write down, it only bends light a little bit. It only bends it a little. Just enough. So that would be step 1 in your flowchart. Would the cornea bends the light a little bit. Just picture a photon, a light photon coming in into the eye, and we'll talk about the steps that take place. The middle tunic is the vascular tunic. So this is where you're finding blood vessels, that choroid layer. The iris is part of the vascular tunic because it is a colored portion of the eye. It's got melanin in it. It's very vascular. And then this little kind of enlarged area that latches itself onto the lens of the ciliary body is also part of the choroid. So this area of the eye is all kind of the colorful area. That sort of makes sense because everybody's iris is a different color. Okay, so this is the colorful coat, chloride coat. So the iris is actually the second structure of the eye that light passes through. So it has to pass through that space in the iris to get to the lens next. The pupil is the space, the dark spot right in the middle of your eye is actually a space created by that circular tissue that's the iris. So a lot of people think the pupil is a thing. It's actually a nothing. It's a hole. Okay. I mean, you just think the pupil is something, right? But it's actually nothing. It's a space. It's empty space. Yeah.
Is the empty space due to a lack of color or empty space as in like a physical void?
A physical void. So right behind that pupil is the lens. So back to this picture here, easier to visualize light being bent a little bit by the cornea, passing through that space, pupil, and hitting the lens. As soon as it hits the lens, this is where the action happens. So when light hits the lens, which also should be transparent, it's a biconvex surface, kind of like an onion, right? So an onion is like rounded on both sides, top and bottom, sort of like flat, like a spaceship, UFO, think UFO. It's a biconvex surface, like UFO. It's very mysterious. It's a transparent UFO, so when light goes through it, it's bent by both sides of the lens. But the lens, the amount that light is bent is actually determined by this muscle. So let's look at this muscle. Inside the ciliary body are these little strips of muscle tissue called ciliary muscles. Okay, so as light passes through the fluid inside these chambers here and gets to the lens, the eye does something amazing. It knows how much to bend that light, okay? And those muscles will pull on these little ligaments. These are called suspensory ligaments. They suspend the lens, the suspension bridge. They suspend the lens. And as the muscles pull on the lens, it will either, picture this lens being bendy and flexible. What will happen when they pull on the lens? It flattens out the lens. Okay. And if they release the tension on the lens, it's going to be bulgy, right? So that change in the shape of the surface will change the amount that light is bent. So if you're looking at close-up images, this is how I remember this. The lens gets bulgy. So if you're looking on a bug on your nose, your lens goes bulgy. Bug, bulgy. And if you are looking at far away images, it's flat. Far away, flat. Bug on your nose, bulgy. So we don't think about this very much, but like when you're using your iPhone, iPhones take awesome pictures. When you're using your iPhone, it also focuses on images automatically based upon how far away something is. There's a lens inside a camera that does the same exact thing. It bends the light differently based upon where you're focusing that camera. So the lens inside a camera changes shape, just like your own lens does, but our bodies do this automatically, right? So this is performed, that function is performed by the ciliary muscles. I recommend YouTubing a video of that happening because there's a lot more learned when you see that actually in action. Okay, so make sure you YouTube that happening. It's kind of neat to see that lens flatten out, bulge up. So again, where you find those muscles and the ligaments are in the ciliary body, which is that kind of like thicker area in the base of the iris. So the lens is suspended by all these little ligaments, and It lies just behind this, just behind the iris and pupil. Okay, now once light is bent there, so that's the second, I guess you could say that's the third major thing that happens. First the cornea bends the light, and then the light passes through the pupil, which is a space, and then it's bent by the lens. So those are the three major things that are happening. This slide is giving you a visual of what's called accommodation, which is what we just talked about. That's the lens changing shape based upon what distance you want to focus on. Okay. So if an image is close up, this is what your lens looks like. When the image is far away, the lens thins out. So, okay, so that's on the slide. Anyway, that process is called accommodation. Okay, you have to talk about the iris and its effect or its response to nervous system activity. So when your sympathetics are active, without looking, what's going to happen to your iris or your pupil? I guess we can talk about it as what's going to happen to the pupil based upon what the iris does. Is the iris going to open or close? It's going to open with sympathetic input. You're running from a bear. Why does your iris open up? Specifically, why? The adrenaline causes it to open up. But it opens up because you want to get as much light into your retina as you can so you can see everything. You want to have really good peripheral vision. So if you want more light in your house, you open up the blinds. Okay. So it's like opening up the blinds, which increases the diameter of the pupil. We call that, which is that space created by the iris, we call that dilation, okay? Pupil dilation. It's got another medical term. I can't remember that. Okay, so the constriction is called meiosis. Even though that sounds a lot like gamete sex cell production, but it's spelled differently. It's actually spelled M-I-O-S-I-S. M-I-O-S-I-S, meiosis. And then that is shown by the constriction. So remember, if the sympathetics do one thing, the parasympathetics always do what? The exact opposite. So if you are, you just ate Thanksgiving dinner, that's my favorite thing to talk about because you're a blob on the lazy boy or on the couch watching football, your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. If you look at somebody's pupils, just do this like at some point, just as soon as somebody's done eating, say, can I look at your pupils? They'll be like, I guess, but they'll be in food coma, so they'll be like, yeah, whatever. Do anything, right? The pupils close, and you can see that happening. Somebody, what other things can affect that? If you see something you really like, or a person you're really attracted to, the pupil is going to open up because that stimulates your sympathetic nervous system, which makes sense, right? You get excited, you have like a fight or flight sort of response, but a really small one. Another thing that opens your pupils is when you lie. That is an uncontrolled physiological response to a lie. Unless you're a psychopath and you believe your lies, or you're a chronic liar. Chronic liars believe their lies, guys. These people convince themselves that these things are true. Yeah, it is mental illness. So, unless somebody's a psychopath or a chronic liar, when they lie, their pupils are going to open up. So if you're a trained interrogator, that's what you look for. Isn't that interesting? So like if you're the CIA, or there's this movie from the 80s that I recently watched, Blade Runner. The whole movie is based upon that concept. They're interrogating all these folks who appear to be humans, but some of them are not humans, and that's how they figure it out, is what their pupil response is. If it's normal, they're human. If it's not, they're Cylon or whatever. No, that's Battlestar Galactica. Whatever they call them, I don't remember. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay? So now when your significant other And then you guys are having a conversation with that person, and now you're gonna know what's happening. Get real close. Okay, just get really relaxed. Say, did you really do this?
So
Did
does
you
it
go to Burger King without me?
Or does it?
What do you want?
Dilates when they're lying, but also dilates when they're looking at you. Like, if you're a significant other, hopefully they like you. So that might give a mixed result. I don't know. Well, when you're fighting, they definitely don't like you. So I guess it would work. Yeah, food for thought, right?
I know it's kind of odd, but I'm curious, with the colors of the irises, so I've heard that people who are albino have red irises. How is that? Because I'm thinking.
Because there's no pigment covering the blood vessels.
Oh, so you're basically seeing the color of the blood vessels.
Correct.
Ah, I was gonna say, well, isn't red a darker color than blue and
Right.
green, so why would that?
So yeah, it's the blood vessels.
I have another question.
Sure.
Does the color of the iris help you in regards to like ultraviolet light? Because.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so like the darker the iris, the more UV light it's gonna block. Just like your skin. The darker the skin, the more melanin you have in your skin, the more UV light is going to reflect off of it rather than pass through. So if you are albino, you have to have, every time you go outside, you have to wear sunglasses. Otherwise your retina is just gonna get hammered with UV light. Or like if you have light eyes, like a lot of people have like really light colored eyes. If you have pale skin, I'm kind of an enigma because I have very pale skin, but I have very dark eyes. That doesn't really happen too often. Most people with pale skin have light eyes. Like Lauren, like you look at, Lauren is a vampire like me, right? You've got the pale skin. And you look at, pale person's eyes, and they're gonna be like either blue or green, generally, not all the time. Freckles are actually, it's your body compensating for the light color. Isn't that cool? Your body's like, oh crap, well my skin is really light, so I'm really susceptible to UV light, so I'm gonna make a bunch of little blotches of melanin and put them in my skin. And that assists in reflecting light. Yeah, so the iris directly reflects not all the time, obviously, generally reflects the color of your skin. So the darker your skin, darker your iris, the better off you are fending off UV light. Which a lot of people don't know, but UV light really damages your. I used to think people just wore sunglasses to be cool. And then I realized after I studied anatomy that everybody should wear sunglasses, whether you have light or dark colored eyes, because that's UV light hitting your retina, right?
Especially in the wintertime too, because the sun is actually closer to the earth.
Right.
And
especially in the winter.
and especially when there's
And then
snow
it's
on it.
reflecting off the snow.
Yeah.
And then you're getting even more.
Mhm.
So it's not just when it's hot outside. Yeah. Does that answer? I can't remember what your question was. Was the albino? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I'm also curious, like when albinos receive like cells from the cornea of an individual, would that help them tremendously?
You mean the iris?
The iris, yes.
Yeah, it's called an iridectomy. Yeah. Okay. Iridotomy. No. That's removal and incision of. It's a procedure where you get an iris donor or an iris